Thank you for listening to Paper Girl Podcast. My name is Melodie Coulter. I am a writer. I am a former librarian, and I am the owner of Meadow Market Books in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Today on the podcast is very exciting. Instead of an author, we have Kayla Comrie. She is another bookseller. She's the owner of Kinara Books in Tulsa, a pop-up bookstore experience. And she is now permanently on the shelves at Meadow Market, providing something special and unique that I'm not able to offer. So let's dig into it. Welcome, Kayla.
Thank you. I appreciate the invite. This is so exciting.
I'm just so amped. You popped onto the scene very shortly before Meadow Market actually became a reality.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. My jump into this journey was almost kind of like someone pushed me off a cliff because of us losing Fulton Street Bookstore and Cafe recently. I've been a corporate girly for 15 years. I wasn't necessarily discouraged from becoming an entrepreneur, but it never really was pushed to be something that was, I guess, acceptable in my household. The expectation was just to always climb the corporate ladder and get as best of a position as you can so you can be self-sustaining. And I fell in love with reading in adulthood that took me down a rabbit hole that I refused to come back out from. So when I found out about Fulton opening, I was ecstatic. But when I found out about them closing, I was devastated. And I had a very visceral reaction to hearing that news and knew wait a minute, no, there has to be a way that I can try and fill in that gap for the community, because I almost exclusively the last 2 years have read authors that are Black and brown and just provide naturally in conversation with friends, coworkers. I actually got a coworker to start reading and she swore up and down she didn't like reading. But I just naturally bring the books that I love in conversation. So then I thought, if I can give book recommendations, I probably could sell them too. And I want to say it was maybe 2-3 weeks after we heard about, Fulton closing. I had, like I said, a visceral reaction. I almost went into a manic state because I stayed up every night for almost 6 weeks planning, how could I make this a reality? And it went from a little idea to 6 weeks later, I'm having my first pop-up. So yeah, it's been a journey.
Yeah. So had you ever really thought about selling books, or was it 2025 suddenly this opportunity to come in and kind of save yourself from losing something that you love?
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say I ever really dreamed of selling books. I loved going to the library as a kid. It was something that was normalized in my household, which I didn't realize until adulthood wasn't something that was typical for most kids. I feel like there's the families who prioritize reading and prioritize schooling, and then there's families who maybe lean into what their kids' favorite hobbies are, and they're a little bit more self-aware as opposed to traditional in the sense. I would say that's how I was raised, more traditional. But yeah, when I fell in love with reading for pleasure in adulthood, I think that's kind of when the concept started to subconsciously become an idea that I was more and more comfortable with throughout the years. And yeah, I think the announcement came out mid-September, and we found out maybe a week or two after the announcement that they were going to be closing, that their official last day was like mid-October. And then my first pop-up event was mid-November. So it was just back to back because it stirred something in me. It really did. It ignited something in me to be like, okay, it's no longer an idea. You can make this a reality, figure out how to do it, and just go from there.
Yeah. So you came to Tulsa in 2019, right?
2020,
2020.
the top of 2020, before the pandemic.
Yes. I was like, I remembered, for context, one of the many reasons I brought Kayla onto the podcast was because we sat down to talk about her case takeover. And I think the first hour of that meeting, we didn't talk about business at all.
Right.
We had just kind of, it started with that pleasant, polite conversation. And then we sat down for an hour and just talked about reading and our experience with like Tulsa bookstores. And then we were like, oh no, you have a pop-up in 30 minutes. Yeah. Like, let's talk business real quick.
I was like, that's why I'm here.
But I did remember that you got to Tulsa right before the pandemic. So like putting that timeline in my brain. So top of 2020, you end up in Tulsa in the Tulsa Remote Program.
Yes. I found out about the Tulsa Remote Program the end of 2019. And I moved here from South Florida, Miami. And I knew I would say at the end of 2017, going into 2018, like Florida was not going to be home. Like I did not see myself being rooted there permanently. So I started contemplating, well, what's going to be next? And I honestly thought I was going to move to Dallas. I remember being very apprehensive about like verbalizing these plans to my mom because I knew she was going to freak out. The way she freaked out when I told her I wanted to move to Florida, I just imagined that all over again. I was like, oh, this is not going to go well because I'm not from Miami. I'm not from Texas. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. So, she had a very visceral reaction to finding out I did not want to live home or anywhere near family. But when I found out about the Tulsa Remote Program, it was, in the midst of me kind of finalizing plans for relocating again. And I figured, okay, let me try this program because I don't really know what I want from the next stage of my life, but I know that I want to change. And then I rationalized like, well, Tulsa and Dallas is like a 4-hour drive. So let's just consider this like a little speed bump to get to Dallas, Never really thinking it would be a long-term location. And I mean, the way that the timing happened, it was very quick. I don't know, maybe this is becoming a theme in my life, but I found out at the end of 2019 about Tulsa Remote. Applied, had my interview. I want to say if it wasn't right before Thanksgiving, it was right after. Found out around Christmas that I was accepted, and they offered like a guided visit to come and see Tulsa for myself since I had never come on my own prior. And I want to say it was Martin Luther King weekend of January. So again, back to back sequence of events. And I was like, well, my lease is up end of February. So, I mean, might as well just jump in and try it now,
Oh my gosh.
So I came here for my guided visit, Martin Luther King weekend, moved February like 25th. Like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, almost a little over a month later.
It's almost your Tulsa anniversary.
Yes, it is. It's going to be 6 years on February 25th. That's crazy.
Oh my gosh. And then that, around the same time, Fulton Street starting to
starting to pop up. Yeah. And not pop up like what Kinara is doing. I remember moving here, and now that I look back on it, I'm pretty sure I had COVID because I was out for a week. Like, I got here, all of the adrenaline of driving here with my 2 little road dogs and like a U-Haul hitched to the back of my car. Like, as soon as I got my keys and moved in, my body shut down and I was out for the count. Like, I was so incoherent to the point where I think I scared my family. Like, I remember thinking, like, I just told them I'm moving to Oklahoma and
now I'm dying.
Now I'm dying.
No, I think
and
I got
not being
COVID.
Responsive.
I think I got COVID at the very end of 2019 because I was like I was heavy bad sick for a week, but like on the bookends of it, I had like something, and it was definitely like upper respiratory.
Okay.
And the reason I specifically think it might have been COVID was that after that, Coca-Cola and anything with garlic tasted really weird to me for a good year and a half.
Interesting.
Which was nice because I needed to quit drinking as much as I was. But like it also sucked because I love garlic. So I was like,
I get it.
This tastes weird. But no, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what I mean, I was never officially diagnosed because it was before COVID was a thing, but it was very interesting how 3 weeks after I got here, everything shut down. And I think that was, pretty much the resurgence of me reading for pleasure again, because what else was I going to do? You're all, stranded inside. But I'm grateful because it actually forced me to pause. I think I had every intention of pausing once I got here because I knew it was total opposite of Miami, but it really made me pause. Like, I'm sure everyone has their COVID story, but yeah, around that time when everything shut down, from my understanding, I think Fulton was supposed to be opening like any week then, any day then, like March or April, but they had to postpone their opening because of the shutdown. So it was, their opening year they had to delay, and then because of everything that happened with the protests for George Floyd, I think that's when they pushed their opening day back up because they realized, people are actually curious about what they can do when it comes to situations like this. So, curiosity and books go hand in hand. That's, perfect. And the fact that it's been 5 years, or she was in business for 5 years, that's no major feat. Like, that's a very big achievement for a small business here in Tulsa. So kudos to her. And she's actually in my sorority, so I respect her immensely. And like I said, I try to fill in the gap.
Yeah. So you have this, like, do you have any, beyond reading, any, like, formal, I guess, like, experience with books and, like, that kind of community?
Yeah, that's a good question. Outside of reading, no.
Oh, I love that. To be such a prolific reader, even if like your love of fiction developed later, to be such a prolific reader that you can recommend books and you've got such a great collection development talent naturally is just like incredibly impressive. Like watching you put your materials on the shelf, like I was like, oh, I want to put that on my TBR. That's on my TBR. I told someone today, they were looking at it, and I was like, yeah, that's basically the visual representation of everything I want to read this year.
I love it.
And I sat down with Legend in the Baking.
Okay.
And I was like, oh no, this is a sequel, because I was like,
right.
Everything feels very familiar with these characters. Yes. And I think I just misheard there was a bookstagrammer that came in and she bought Fake It Till You Bake It.
And that was the first book in the series, but she thought it was the sequel.
I think so.
Okay.
And so I was like, oh, it's not the first one. I'm going to put this down and get Fake It Till You Bake It. But just it's all fantastic and it's eye-catching, and it's not just that these are pretty books that make my eyes happy, but like phenomenal work and authors that I am familiar with that I have a lot of respect for. And I was just like, oh, I didn't even realize that was there. I mean,
Yeah.
it really goes to show there's a lot of discussion in the library community about whether or not a librarian needs to have a master's degree in library studies.
Interesting. Okay.
To do it. And, you know, there are portions of it on like a graduate level study that I'm like, you do need to know some of this to be in a library or to provide like specific services.
Right.
But at the same time, like being really great at curating a collection and interacting with public and understanding user behavior. There's a lot of that just really people have a natural talent for. And I think this is such a good, strong case for you don't need to have that kind of formal training.
Thank you.
But in the lead up to it, I mean, you had a few weeks where you were like,
planning and strategizing.
Yes. You know, walk me through some of like what you were doing with all of that time.
When you reached out, I remember thinking like, this is spam. Like, I was like, nobody's reaching out to me for my suggestions. Like, it's one thing to interact with someone on a one-on-one, you know, in-person interaction when I do the pop-ups. But like, when I saw the message, I was just like, is this for real? It took a while for it to register. Like, no, like they're being serious. Like, this is a legit account. This is a legit person. Like, and I was flattered. Going back real quick to your question about like if I had any experience outside of being a reader, the answer is still no. But as you were talking just now, I remembered like very specific memories that I have of people throughout my childhood telling me of how either I was a very articulate child or I was a really good storyteller. And I never really, I guess, equated that to anything. I just thought, oh, that they're just giving me a compliment, you know? But as I fell back in love with reading for pleasure and kind of whittled away from primarily reading nonfiction to primarily reading fiction, I really think what captivated me was realizing there are so many stories out there that are good. Like, not just there for the sake of needing representation, like good stories that had me in chokeholds for weeks before I was willing to like start a new book.
Those ones where you hold it to your chest and you're like, oh, this
I was like, I need to reread this right away, like not put it down and come back to it. Like, I'm rereading it now, and then I'm going to go tell 4 people about it, and I'm going to like drill them about getting the book so that we could talk about it. Like, I was really enjoying the discovery of storytelling. And when you're reading nonfiction, especially the type of nonfiction I was into, which was primarily either history or memoirs, especially memoirs, like there's an element of storytelling there, you know, the way that they're trying to get their reader to empathize with the way that they navigated through their life. It's an art. So jumping back to when you had reached out, I was thinking, what can I provide that will be a nice plethora of everything that I love? And I just immediately, my brain went to, well, break it down by genre. And then after, I think I started with romance first. I always start with romance. And then I think I did thriller mystery next. And I think that had to do with the fact that whatever I was reading at the time was in that genre. Then I did historical fiction. Then I got excited and was like, wait, YA, middle grade, children's. Then I was like, but wait, like, there's horror, so should I put horror with mystery thriller? And then there's contemporary fiction. So I just kept coming up with more genres where I was like, but there's like at least a dozen ones that I would, you know, select for this genre. And it just became more of me whittling down from this like massive 10-page list that I started to, okay, what'll actually fit on the shelves? Like I came and measured the shelves, and I like literally put the measuring tape on my floor at home. Like, this is how many spines that equates to. So yeah, it started off with me thinking, okay, major genres, more, most recognizable genres, and then going down the rabbit hole of, but then there's this, and then there's that, and then kind of bringing it back home and saying, okay, now you have over 500 titles, gotta whittle it down. That was the method to my madness.
No, I love it. It's so much nicer to go from like a big list and then kind of whittle. And that's how I do my shopping too when I'm on Ingram or Book Depot or, specifically on a publisher's page. I load up my cart. I just go nuts.
Same.
Anything that like I love or that I am familiar with that author or like, oh, this is on a recommended list. And then I create these like $10,000 carts. Yes. And then I'm like, I don't have $10,000 to put down on new stock.
I blame online shopping because we do it with online shopping. Like, you put everything you want that you see that's on sale or, the color scheme, whatever gravitates. And then you go to your cart and you're like, actually, I was only looking for a dress and some jeans. So it's time to whittle this down.
Yeah. I think it's like the mental equivalent of grocery shopping when you're hungry.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Throwing all of this stuff in the cart and you're like, hold on, I only needed spaghetti sauce and noodles. I need to.
That is exactly what it is. Yes.
Coming out of my like stupor here.
I love that analogy.
Oh man. But it's so hard. And then thinking about space because you were super limited. We're both pretty limited in what we can fit in here at a time. And like, we're finding ways to expand where we can do things like we're taking cabinet doors off in a couple of weeks to move children's pretty much completely off of the big shelves.
Got it.
Because we need to expand the Tulsa shelf already.
Right.
And like,
which is awesome.
It's incredible. Every time an author comes in here, I'm like,
geeked
another
out.
book?
Yes.
Get over here.
I would be fangirling every single time.
It's something that I just love about the Tulsa literary community, and it comes up in every podcast with the authors, is how much everybody just wants everyone else to succeed.
Yeah.
And we like go to author fairs and stuff, and you usually end up spending more than you make at the author fair. I think the Magic City Author Bash. And that one sunk a little bit because we got paid way after. It was like a month after the fair that they finally like settled all the accounts. But I spent, I hope Jared's not listening to this one, $300. $300 buying books.
Supporting local authors.
I was like, look at all of these signed books I have by all of these people that I respect so much.
Yes.
And like, there's like a dark fantasy author at my table with me. And so I was like, here's your money.
Yes.
Take your book.
Trade.
And then I got my check back and I did not make $300. But
honestly, though, the Tulsa community, especially the Tulsa literary community, like, it's so supportive, and it doesn't shock me at all that there were so many, people, not just there participating, but that wanted to actually purchase other authors' books too. I've never gotten the impression that the community here in Tulsa specifically, which is why I'm still here 6 years later compared to where I moved from, that it's like rigid and dog eat dog. It's not like that. I would say, at least the experience that I've had, is super supportive.
Yeah, I think it was a no-brainer. It was Jared's idea to reach out to you about curating a shelf, and he was like, "Have you seen this pop-up bookstore?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I followed them." And he was like, "We should reach out to them because I think we're going to miss out on a population if we just do this ourselves." And that interest in collaborating comes very much from the way that we have been treated by Magic City, by Fulton Street,
Yes.
by Whitty, even by Eleanor's, at every turn that we've interacted with local bookstores, a Book and Bloom down in BA, like being down there when we were thinking about making it a mobile store, there was so much excitement and like, you let us know how we can support you.
Yes.
And then they've done that. And like all of the folks who were in the Whitty Books community, have come around in some way, shape, or form, either putting their books on our shelves or like coming in and patronizing the business and sharing, telling people about us. Magic City sent over a couple that was visiting from out of town, and they like wanted to visit a bunch of places, and we hadn't gotten on the bookshop.org list yet.
Oh, okay.
We were like 2 days later, we were on it.
Okay.
But Magic City was like, oh, you're visiting a bunch of Tulsa bookstores. Is Meadow Market on your list? And they were like, no, we'd never heard of it. And they were like, yeah, you have to go. Here's the address. And
that is amazing.
And it's just like, it's such a huge return on your emotional investment in people, because we've spent all of this time loving our indies. And then the second we said, hey, we want to be a part of this in a new way, they were like, in.
I love it.
Go. And it's a treat. And so when Jared was like, we should ask about inviting Kinara Books into us, I was like, oh yeah, because that's amazing. If we did something like that, I have no doubt in my mind that a bookstore would have been like, hey, how can we support you? And so it was like, boom.
That I did not know. And if you did tell me that, I find it hard that I would forget that. That's amazing that the idea came from just recognizing and being aware that, hey, we might be losing like a part of the community by not trying to capture them, in the beginning. So kudos to you guys, because honestly, self-awareness, you know how they used to say like common sense is not common? I feel the same way about like self-awareness is not, like, people are not self-aware. And the fact that you guys were, and that's what prompted you to even reach out, is really commendable.
Yeah, I think that's a really lovely, like, reminder of what a good team it is. And again, talking about, like, do you really need, like, certain types of formal training to be in certain spaces? And the answer is absolutely not. Because I didn't think about that. I have a library degree, and I worked in primarily minority schools. And I was like, I can curate a bookstore selection that really reaches all populations, which is very like hubris of me. And I'm like, buying, and, there are some small overlaps in what you've selected, but really, like, I look at this and I'm like, oh, I recognize a few of these authors, but a lot of this is new to me. And I'm like, oh man, thank God that Jared said that, because we would have been missing out on so much of this. And like, the reality is, when you're shopping for books, a lot of this is not being presented.
Yeah, it's something that I noticed almost immediately when I decided to start reading for pleasure, because when that happened, I was pretty much just going to the major book retail websites, Barnes & Noble. Remember Borders? I used to go to Borders all the time. I love Borders. My mom would go to Borders almost as much as she drank coffee. Like, that was like a store we frequented very much.
I can see a book on the shelf.
Can
when
you?
the Borders in Norman closed, I bought that book for like $5.
Oh my gosh,
I can literally see it's got a red spine over there on the middle shelf.
Yes, okay, yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. Oh man, Borders. And then, oh my God, Hastings.
Oh my gosh, I never heard of Hastings.
Hastings, it was like a music and books and a little bit of art. But they had a coffee shop. I saw a music, like a small time musician in Wichita Falls, Texas, performed at a Hastings Hastings Coffee Shop. He did like fun little like acoustic kind of indie country rock mix.
Right.
Not important. They had some of the best coffee in Norman was at the Hastings in Norman.
That's awesome.
But they shut down too, you know. But anyways, you know.
No, yeah, like when it came to me starting this journey, I almost, okay, let me back up. So I had a very specific goal. I was talking to my therapist and I'm like, you know, I think I've grown up enough to realize like exactly what I want when it comes to a partner. Like I need to start manifesting it now. Like I have figured out what I like. I figured out what I don't like. But outside of that, I need to start working towards it, you know, like which is like hindsight's 2020. It's very funny that I thought of it in a so meticulously, you know. But that's just the way my brain works. So anyway, she was like, okay, so what do you like have in mind when you talk about like manifesting it? Like, are you gonna write down like a very specific prayer or affirmation? And I was like, I could do that, but I think I'm gonna like start navigating away from memoirs and focus on Black romance. I was like, because that's just, to me, that feels like it'll help me align, you know, help me align with this manifestation. If I'm seeping into the spines of Black romance, like it'll happen, you know, like, and I gave myself a very specific goal, 100 Black romance books. By the time I got to 40, I felt like, oh my God, I'm not going to hit this goal. Like I was like, there aren't that many options. Why did I make it so specific? I should have just did romance. Okay, I'll just do romance. And then I realized that perspective that I had and like the panic that I had of not being able to finish this goal was solely because I was only relying on what I saw on these big box retail websites. They're only going to promote what the main publishing houses are going to invest in, what they're going to put their marketing money towards. And I quickly found out there's a whole indie author side, like not even like published by the big houses. And I'm like, oh, let me go over to the indie author side. Finished the 60 books quicker than I finished the first 40 books once I tapped into the indie market. And that's when I realized I could keep going if I wanted to. Like if I wanted to make this go from a 100 book goal to 500, I could. Like there's so many, and that again, it's very pigeonholed. It's very specific. But the fact that I could keep going once I tapped into the indie market made me realize like, I'm only believing what people are telling me. I have a lot to unlearn. Like, and that journey of unlearning has been beautiful ever since.
Yeah, it's, you know, of all the things that like Book Talk and Bookstagram have provided, this window into the indie author scene has like, it made such a niche population just explode. And
definitely,
you know, we're in an age and an era of history where Amazon is such a difficult topic. And, you know, and that was a conversation I had with Lear too, very briefly and more so off the podcast, but talking about like the usefulness of Kindle Unlimited and how it does provide so much to indie authors. And that's also a benefit too. There's a lot of authors that I've read that I would have never read if I didn't have a Cave subscription.
Yeah, same.
And, you know, but like just opening your eyes to the existence of the indie author market is so powerful and empowering for a reader. And like, and then as a bookseller being able to say like, oh yes, I know of this seemingly very small time author who's got these big, beautiful stories and you should read them.
Yeah. It definitely opened my perspective so much. Once I found out there was even an indie author market, and like I said, I had a lot of unlearning to do because, I realized, like, in that moment when when the light bulb finally went on, like, there's ways you could read other authors. It's not going to be what's promoted, though. It's going to be what these authors are self-promoting, and then I was like, and don't forget, you picked a very specific genre, trope, niche, whatever you want to call it. So you can spread your wings now and actually read, like, across all genres, like, and that's what kind of kept the fire burning and motivated me even more when I realized, if I really wanted to fill in this gap, I was going to have to get familiar with other genres very quickly. And that's what I did. So that's what I'm doing. I'm still a work in progress. I'm a very scary person. So, like, the fact that I just finished my first horror book, which is actually right here, Make Me a Monster.
How was it? That cover, it's crazy beautiful.
It's so beautiful, by Kayla Comrie. Yeah. It's a YA, so I think that's also something that people should keep in perspective if they are interested in horror, because sometimes people don't remember, like, YA is not going to have the same type of dialogue, So, but either way, fantastic. It's a retelling of Frankenstein. I don't even think I read Frankenstein in school. Like, I went to a private Christian school, so they weren't doing horror or anything. They were doing Shakespeare and American classics, so
yeah.
So I think, as a 36-year-old just now getting some exposure in other genres, still loving what I'm coming across, like, I think that's a sign as to how there are so many good stories that are just waiting to get in front of the right audience.
Oh, yeah. And, that makes me think of, like, a thing I've said for a long time, but especially this week, in conversations with people, is that when you limit yourself to, like, these social conventions, so the idea that, like, oh, as a white person, you shouldn't be reading a lot of Black fiction, or I can only find books that are in a big box retailer, and anything else is probably going to be trash, which is, like, a criticism of KU and Kindle Direct Publishing items that is, like, no, whether or not it has a major publisher behind it, that's not going to tell you if it's good any more than it's going to tell you if this is bad. But this idea that if I only read books that are made for my age group, then that's appropriate reading for me. And, kids, there's a common conversation in the children's library space, in the child development space, that children will read and really take in only what they're capable of. And parents are very scared that kids will read, like, an adult book, and that's going to be too mature for them, and it's going to absolutely mess up their psyche. And the reality is that 99% of the time, when they're reading a book that has content that they're not ready for, it completely, like, flies over their head in the craziest ways.
Interesting.
And I kind of vibe with that because I read Judy Blume's Forever in the 3rd grade. I was not ready for it. I didn't know how you spelled the male anatomy. And so they kept talking about it. And I was like, I don't know what's going on.
I don't know what they're referencing. Yeah.
And it was probably, I was like 3/4 of the way through the book before I realized what was going on, because I was a big Judy Blume fan as a kid, and my grandmother handed me this book, and she was an older lady, so I don't think she remembered what was in that book. And my mom, I don't know if she saw that it was, or if she was just not worried. My mom, was pretty strict on the media that I consumed, but when it came to books, she was like,
same,
whatever. And I think she just knew, because she didn't have any, like, she was a daycare provider, and so she was familiar with child development, to a certain age, but
Cool.
not really in like the reading space,
Okay.
right? You know, it was
Okay.
like reading picture books to kids
Right.
during story time at daycare. But so on that end of the spectrum, kids getting access to books, they comprehend what they're ready to comprehend for the most part.
That tracks though, because I mean, in your example alone with the book, like you didn't know, but it's not like you saw it and because you didn't know, you like stormed away and threw the book and like I just can't finish this book. Like,
you know, I didn't turn
just
into
kept
any kind of
going.
like weird, you know,
Yeah.
psycho sex freak,
Right,
because I read a book
exactly.
about having sex
Right.
way younger than I probably should have been reading it, you know, and honestly, it gave me some like understanding about puberty, and so when that happened afterward, I was like, okay, I know what's going on, and you know, so a lot of really good lessons to take from that. But on the other end of it, and really what my main point about this is that as adults, we tend to say, oh, I can't read children's books. I don't have a kid. I don't spend any time around children, so I don't need to read middle grade. I don't need to read a picture book. I don't need to read YA.
I don't get that. I personally don't. It's just like
I boxed myself in a little bit of it, but
Okay.
I did for a while until things really got bad with J.K. Rowling. I used to do a yearly reread of the Harry Potter series.
Yeah.
And really enjoyed that, but I didn't open myself up to much YA. And then I went to library school.
Okay.
And when you want to work in children's services or in school librarianship, you have to take classes on children's literature and YA lit. And, you know, when you're reading that kind of stuff, you want to be intentional with your collection development classes. And so you're reading what you would then be developing a collection for. And somewhere in those classes, I read The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill.
Okay.
And it's my favorite book.
Yeah.
It was published when I was 23 years old.
Okay.
So if I had not done all of that reading for class in my late 20s, I would have never come across my favorite book, which also would have probably meant that when she released her contemporary fiction, I probably wouldn't have read that either. And I'm really glad I did, because it's a very close second.
Okay.
But like, we are only children for so long.
Right.
And when you become a parent, you're like, wow, you really aren't a child for very long at all. But in the grand scheme of life, you know, we're reading middle grade for, you know, 3-4 years. And then we move into teen and tween books. And then we move into YA. And if you're limiting yourself in those 3-year chunks, you only have the stories that were written up to that point.
Right.
And so The Girl Who Drank the Moon is middle grade. It was not published when I was of the right age to read that.
Yeah.
And if I had not been open to it in some way or fashion, I would have missed out on a really beautiful story.
Right.
And so I think, you know, set your expectations 100%.
Right.
When I'm reading YA, I know I'm reading teenagers talking.
Yeah.
And, you know, but
that's one of the things. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
fine.
I was going to say that's one of the things that I just recently had a conversation about, specifically because of it was that book and The Scammer by Tiffany D. Jackson? Tiffany D. Jackson. Another new release that's come out this year, and both of them are YA. I want to say The Scammer is it's based on a college campus, so it's older than the main characters in that book are older than the characters here in Make Me a Monster. I'm fairly certain Make Me a Monster, she's high school. But it's interesting hearing critiques that people have when it comes to YA, and how almost 9 times out of 10 their critique has something to do with, well, it wasn't relatable because I wouldn't have did that.
Okay.
Like, okay, we all have different experiences. We all have different upbringings. We all come from different backgrounds and cultures. So because if you didn't like something, I would prefer to understand why, other than the telltale story of, well, I wouldn't have did that. You know, it's like, this is why reading other perspectives and other genres and other authors is so important, because it's just about expanding your perspective, not reading what you agree with, not reading what, you know, things that only would be done by you. You know,
it's very much like a mirrors and doors and windows kind of energy of
yeah. And I get the whole, because my friend says, it's my best friend, she's like, I like what I like. I get that too.
Yeah.
But when you're so adamant about what you don't like, and it has to and it's specifically about a YA book, like, I wouldn't have did that when I was younger. That to me, like, it's a huge pet peeve of mine, because it's like,
well, yeah, but why would you have not done that? Is it because like you had a really strict mom and so you knew you wouldn't get away with
context
that? Or is it that like I couldn't have walked down to the store because I grew up in a place that was like, you know, sprawling suburbia, so I couldn't walk to a store. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, you wouldn't have walked to the corner store. There was no corner store for you to walk to. Yeah. So what is your point? Tell me about the story.
It's something about that excuse with YA that just grinds my gears. Because, like, you knew it was a YA when you picked it up. Like, I can understand if that was your, I guess, grievance and it wasn't YA and it was something that was, you know, in the same demographic and age group and everything that you are, maybe. But come on, like, YA, we were all raised differently. We all had all different kinds of you know, fundamental upbringing. So yeah, I don't know, I don't like that excuse for YA. That's just a personal thing.
That cracks me up. I'm just thinking about like a book that I read recently that I was like, oh, this is so much my experience, but they did something and I wouldn't have done that. And I read this book called The Bookshop Sisterhood.
Yes.
And I grabbed it because we had just called the landlord and told them that we wanted to tour the bookstore.
I love it, yes.
And I was like, oh, I'll grab this. And I loved it. One, a little bit upset that they didn't get to opening the bookstore till the very end.
Oh, yes. Talk about a slow burn.
But I also didn't like the name that they had originally picked for the bookstore. I was like, I wouldn't have called it that. It's kind of a stupid name, you know, but like also like if I had not liked the book because of that, that would have been so goofy.
Right.
Like,
right.
It's not my bookstore.
Yeah. And it's like, and you're like, again, going back to the YA grievance, you're an adult, so you have more perspective now. Of course, you wouldn't do that now as an adult. And even if you try to put yourself in these kids' shoes back, you know, when you were their age as well, again, the way that they were raised, the type of things that you were raised around differ. So yeah, I think that there's definitely a little bit more questioning that goes on in my subconscious when I hear that. I'm a very curious person, so I really want to get into the minutia of like, okay, so why, you know? But sometimes, like I said earlier, sometimes people aren't self-aware and they don't even know the why.
I think I need to reread Catcher in the Rye.
Ooh,
Having this conversation, I think I need to reread Catcher in the Rye because I read it when I was like 22.
Okay.
Which is not the right time to read Catcher in the Rye. Or at least like that was my stance on it, was like I hated Catcher in the Rye because I found Holden Caulfield to be so completely intolerable. Like,
yes.
What a pain in the ass child. And I think part of it was that like I wouldn't have done it that way. And I, you know, when you're 22, you still don't have a frontal lobe.
Right.
So, you know, my reading choices were guided by a very different brain than they are now. But I just finished My Year of Rest and Relaxation, which I would describe as very Catcher in the Rye adjacent.
Really?
Whereas like instead of everybody being phonies, everybody's boring. There's a lot more nuance to that.
Yes.
But when I read it, I loved it. And I was like, oh, because this is like Catcher in the Rye if Holden was a late 20s depressed white woman. And I'm like, you know what? I kind of get why, because I also think that the main character in Rest and Relaxation is insufferable. But I'm like, I'm just kind of interested to see what she does with all this unsufferability.
Right.
And like, you know what? Maybe with that shift in understanding there, and then the perspective of like, I need to remember that this is a teenager doing teenager things.
Right.
Maybe
See?
I would enjoy it if I go back, because people love Catcher in the Rye, and I have always been like, I don't know, I don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think there's power in the reread for sure. Especially when there's been several years between the first time and the reread. But that's life. Like, we're growing every day. The world is changing around us constantly. So the more perspective we have when we get to reread a book, the experience for sure is hopefully different. You know, that's, you would think, but
Something I love about like being in the book business in this time period, you know, and it's always a prescient time to be in books, because that's humanity. But just like the ability to gain some empathy and understanding for a different experience. And I think in the United States, that's like so wildly important. And so getting to watch you provide these new viewpoints, and you know, I want to ask you about choosing to do a pop-up, but from my perspective, watching you do pop-ups around Tulsa and taking that approach to sharing specifically Black and Brown literature versus a standalone store, I think is really helpful in meeting people where they're at to provide those stories. And so you're doing something really powerful and very like demonstrative, but not performative, to educate people in Oklahoma and especially the Tulsa area. And so I think that's really, really cool. And now I want to ask, like, what was the rationale behind like doing a pop-up store versus
a brick and mortar?
Yeah.
The timing. It was the timing, because I felt like there was a need to provide immediately. I think when I was doing this, 6 weeks, head down, late nights, trying to figure it out, the end goal is to have a brick and mortar. But I knew that if I decided to wait until I had a brick and mortar, I would have had to wait at least 6 months to a year. And I really wanted to, like I said, fill in that gap, because we found out about Fulton closing September. They announced their last day. It was pretty much going to be like 30 days later. And I was thinking, like, waiting until like April, May, I don't know if I could sit still that long. I was like, that on top of going into the holiday season. Winter, again, I'm from Cleveland. Winter to me means having a bunch of books and puzzles to entertain yourself until the spring comes. So I was thinking, just try it now. And that way you could at least start building a rapport with the community until you're able to get your own brick and mortar. I also wasn't 100% sure location-wise, like if I did wait for brick and mortar, where it should be in Tulsa. And I knew, again, if I waited any longer, I probably would have talked myself out of it. So that was the driving reason. Like the timing, I was just like, they announced their closing and the actual closing date is fast. I gotta start fast. And also, I really am a huge advocate, and I have been for a while now, of supporting small businesses. And I knew that if I were to try to execute a pop-up concept, I would be able to promote the small businesses that I would be trying to do a pop-up in, you know? So that to me almost felt more natural than going through the process of, you know, commercial real estate and figuring out a location. I was just like, of course I'm going to uplift other small owned businesses. Like that's if you ask the people closest to me, like that's what I've been doing for a long time now. So it fit everything. I feel like all the different pieces of the puzzle just happened to keep fitting. I wasn't getting a lot of resistance that I was anticipating, you know? But I think it's because that's the way the trajectory of the planning was supposed to go. So fingers crossed, everybody still, you know, put out there in the universe, like, I want a brick and mortar, don't get me wrong. But yeah, in terms of what the community was losing and how fast we were going to be losing it, pop-ups they just went hand in hand.
I love that. And that's, you know, Tulsa has lost a lot of bookstores in the last 2 years.
Right.
It feels like rapid fire, and it made it a scary moment to be thinking about. We had been sitting on Meadow Market for years and making very slow, not very meaningful progress. And some of it was intentional. You know, Meadow Market started as kind of like a, oh, I don't have a job right now, so I guess I'll sell some books online. And then, all right, put that to bed because I got a real job. And, you know, then, oh, let's maybe do this fun little thing on the weekends. And, you know, oh, the crowdfunding timing didn't work out to get what we wanted. Now let's chip away at building a camper out. And then, you know, but then once we found the thing that worked, it was fast and furious.
Yeah.
And
that's how I knew it was the right
thing to do.
Yeah. Because I am very much against forcing things. So if it has to be forced, that's enough of a sign for me, at least, that this might not be what I'm supposed to be doing. Now I've always been very stubborn, so so I can't say that I have always recognized when something isn't going my way, but this just it's almost like it fell in my lap. Like the concept, the idea, all the different pieces of the puzzle that it took to become an LLC. It took to become a member of the American Booksellers Association. It took to, start becoming an official bookseller with a publisher. Like all of these things that I thought would be such mountains to climb and conquer was just as easy as making a cup of coffee. And I was like, I think this means this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
This is right.
Lord knows in my normal quote unquote real job, that's not how I feel.
You're like, boom, everything's falling into place.
Yes. I'm like, I have more frustration working my normal 9 to 5 than I am having starting this business. So I'm going to continue to listen to what God and the universe are telling me.
I love that. I'm really, really glad that you're feeling that same thing too, because sometimes I sit and I'm like, is this happening too easy?
Yeah. I keep second guessing myself, like, wait a second. What do you mean?
So when is the other shoe gonna drop?
Right. That's exactly
what
how
am I missing here?
Right.
And I ask that all the time of my friends. I'm like, read over this. What's missing? Like I sent my business plan to a friend and I was like, tell me what I need to add to this. And she's like, no, it looks good. And I'm like, no, but
there's gotta be something.
It came together and the information I needed was right where I needed it. And there's this building and it's, this is a really meaningful spot to my family. And
Yes.
the timing was so scary perfect. We're talking 20 minutes from list the camper and give up on the camper dream to sending a text message to the landlord.
Right.
Like, is this real? And then it not being one of those like $1 million realtor people that is going to send me 1,000 emails.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah.
And like, I'm like, what am I missing here?
Right.
What have I not done? And then things just keep being good.
Yes.
Like,
I'm so grateful. Like it's not lost to me at all. Every day when I have these moments, I'm just, I still have the apprehension of feeling like the other shoe's going to drop, but I'm still 100% grateful for the opportunities that have already happened, because first Papa was November and we just got to February and I'm already, partnering and collabing and having shelf space. Like, I would never have thought that would have been my reality 4 months into my starting of this business.
You're busy every weekend.
I am.
Like, it was a blessing and a curse when we had that snowstorm, because like it forced me to like stop and and like I got a lot done that Saturday that I needed to do, like back office wise. But like
I caught up on sleep. Yes. I didn't want to, but I basically had to. We couldn't go anywhere during that snowstorm. But I just remember thinking like, I think this is the first weekend that I've actually gotten to like fully relax since starting Kinara, so I'll just take it and live to see another day. I do remember though about I guess maybe 3-4 weeks into starting to plan for this, like looking at myself in the mirror and thinking like, oh my God, I'm looking like what I'm going through right now. Like, I just remember thinking like, oh my God, look at these bags under my eyes. Like, I don't even remember these. Like, did I even have bags under my eyes? Because I was staying up to try and plan everything, So it was the fact that I saw myself and I said, okay, well, I'm going to just buy a bunch of eye patches. And and after I get home from, working out, I'll shower and put on my eye patches while I work. Like, it wasn't like, whoa, this is scary enough for me to stop. It was like, okay, this is telling me you need to adapt and or pivot, add some new self-care routine now that you have this extra work that you're thrusting yourself into. So yeah, I'm big on eye patches now.
I love a little skincare mask and like
you can do it with emails.
You can no one's
seeing you. Yeah, exactly.
It's not like our Teams meeting discussion before we started recording, like watching ourselves in the Zoom box. No, I just it's been a joy as a reader to watch your pop-ups go nuts, and then to like know that we had this like cooking and and then releasing it out into the world, and the reception has been really positive, both for the store and for the collaboration. And like, we put together one collab and then we're finding all of these opportunities. And then I'm like going nuts, and I applied for an event in April, and then I was like, wait, I actually am not even going to be in the state. And then being able to be like, Kayla, do you want this spot? Because like they need somebody to fill in for this.
Yeah. This is what I'm talking about. The Tulsa community and the Tulsa literary community just being so neighborly. It never ceases to amaze me. I love Tulsa so much. I'm so grateful, and I don't want to get emotional. But that's what made me stay. That's what made me think Tulsa's home. Because where I moved from, I would walk my dogs, twice, maybe 3 times a day. Where I grew up, you talk to people that you walk past, you say hello or good evening or whatever the time of day it is. They will look at you like you had 5 heads. And I'm like, I I'm just walking my dogs and being polite. Like I'm not trying to, sell you anything. I'm not trying to start a whole
Just trying to
full-fledged
connect
conversation with
as
you.
a human being.
Yeah, and here in Tulsa, it's like not only do they acknowledge you when you walk past someone on the sidewalk, but then they tell you about, oh, here's this other bookstore, have you heard of this bookstore while you're on your trip? Like, people converse with you and have authentic conversation with you and look out for you. And that's one of the things that I will always appreciate about Tulsa.
I love, no one looks at me like I'm crazy when I see them pick something up off the shelf and I'm like, oh yeah, because this is really the perfect arena for me because I can just yap about books all day long.
Yes,
and every single thing, it helps that, most of this I picked out and purchased. And so like there's a reason why I picked the things that are on the shelf. But like, especially if they hit up the Tulsa shelf and they pick up, like G.D. Brown. I worked with Greg before he went to grad school for English writing. I worked with him. So when people pick up that book, I'm like, oh yeah, I got a copy of that book when it first came out, and there was author copies that he sent out on his own. And so he drew a tree in mine. In a red Sharpie. I don't know why he drew a tree. It had nothing to do with the book. But like having just like these opportunities to talk to people about books, and they don't look at me like, why are you watching me shop? And I'm like, I just wanted to tell you about this item that you picked up that I love. The children's books, like people keep pointing at the Zoran Walks New York. And I'm like, I'm a big fan of Zoran Mamdani and watching like his whole experience and his campaign.
Yes.
But the reason I bought that book was because I love New York City.
Yes.
And the first time that my husband and I went to New York City, which was the first time I'd been there. We didn't do anything. It was 2021, so there wasn't anything to do really except walk.
Right.
And so we walked all over the city. It was like 3 days of walking. I think we went to the Met, and that was it.
Okay.
And then the rest of it was walking.
Yeah.
We went to, our trip to New York City, not the point. We did go to the 9/11 museum too.
Okay.
And I cried for like 3 hours. But we loved New York City. And so when people pick that up, I'm like, oh yeah, isn't that cute? When you did like a 13-mile walking tour. I loved walking around New York City and like just moments.
There's certain cities, even here in Tulsa, where it's like you can walk and you can get in a lot of the culture of the city and the dynamics of the city, and New York's definitely top of that list. So that's cool that you have that kind of memory too, because I love being a tourist. I like going new places all the time, so locations, figuring it out. I think the last time I did that, I went to Denver, and I knew that they had like a train system, a light rail system. So I was like, I'm going to try this out on my own.
Also, you're a public transit fan too. We are too. I got to, the first public transit I got to ride was the train system in Tokyo.
Nice.
Which was like, talk about throwing you into the deep end.
Yes.
And we didn't mean to, but the layover that we had in Tokyo to get to Okinawa, where my family was, was too tight. And our flight from LA to Tokyo was delayed.
Oh, man.
And so we landed as our flight went. So we stayed in Tokyo overnight. And then had to get to the train because the hotel was in a different part, and we were flying out of a different airport.
Interesting. Okay. So lots of movement.
Yeah. And we forgot to get yen before we left the U.S. And so we had to figure out how to use, this was before the U.S. was using chip cards. It was all complicated. And then they have, like Latin alphabet spellings of things on their train system, but it's still not 100% like
American English.
It was very hard to like navigate it. We got on the wrong train and we had our bags with us, and then people on the train looked at us and we were like, airport, and like 10 people were like, no,
wrong train,
and helped usher us with our bags off, and they were like, next train. And then But then just fell in love. I went to DC. I've been to DC a couple of
They have
times,
a good
and
train
their
system
train
too.
system's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I know that New York City is dirty and stinky.
Yeah.
I still love riding the train
The
in
train,
New York.
yeah. This experience. They're like the OGs of the subway system. I'm sure factually that's probably not true, but everyone knows New York has a subway system.
Yeah,
I don't think I knew
my brain
DC.
is just like freaked out about how old the system is.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Seriously. Do you side note, speaking of the I guess public transportation in New York, do you watch The Gilded Age?
I don't.
Okay. If you do have time to add a show to your list, The Gilded Age has captured the building of the Brooklyn Bridge and how that connected Manhattan to Brooklyn, and how like that was like a major like moment in time during that period. And it's been fascinating. Like the whole show is amazing, but like that specifically has been fascinating because I didn't realize the person who primarily not just did the architecture for the bridge, but making sure it was actually operated and done correctly was a woman. And I learned that from The Gilded Age. She was like, I have more reading to do. I was like, how did I not know this?
Well, now it's time to find a book to it too.
Yes, exactly.
I love that. There's a woman on social media that's been doing like little known figures in history that were Black, and like talking about like the 3-color traffic signal was the one that came on my feed today.
Yes.
But just like
the GPS system.
Yes.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
And so I just the opportunity to be in the business of sharing information. I mean, it's what led me to journalism school.
Okay.
And it's what led me to be a librarian, and, you know, to be back in the field in some way. I think just it's such a fun responsibility to have. And even when it's heavy, it doesn't feel heavy.
Right. I think that's what made me realize, you know, fiction is not what I thought it was. I think I just, you know, there's certain blinders we all have, and my mom had the blinder of fiction is I guess it's not that she didn't like fiction, she just truly equated the aspect of reading to learning, and so in her mind that meant fiction. But I can't tell you how much I've learned from an empathetic and emotional intelligence perspective since taking in more fiction. And I'm still learning from fiction. So don't get it twisted, you know. I've tried explaining that to my mom too, and it's taking her a little bit more time to accept that. But I feel like once I've given her plenty of book recommendations, but like once I not just give her a good book recommendation, but then she actually opens it and reads it, then she'll get it. I just get my stubbornness from her. So
there's always one book that like shifts everything for somebody.
Seriously, yep.
And, you know, I feel like it's like a secret sixth library law, like very akin to like every book has its reader and every reader has their book.
Yep.
Well, you know what? It's not secret six because that's the part there. Every reader has their book.
Yes.
There's something that's like, this is the one that gets me to read. Oh, I love it. We've talked a long time.
We have? Okay.
I love it. No, I don't, not to like cut off, but I want to make sure that like we both put food in our bodies tonight and take care and rest in that. And so I'm going to ask my final question, which is the question I ask everybody, which is, since since getting involved in specifically the Tulsa literary world, what is the most surprising or interesting thing that you've encountered?
That's a good question. I guess interacting with authors. Like, it just never dawned on me how many authors lived here in Tulsa. That's been a really cool or interesting experience so far. And like I said, I'm about to celebrate my 6-year anniversary. So they've been amongst me all 6 years. But it's just so cool seeing how, now that I'm like an official bookseller, like how they're more prone to be like, oh yeah, I'm an author and this is what I wrote. I'm like, do you know you're a god? Like, you're a literary god.
You're a rock star.
You're a rock star. Like, I want to kiss your feet. Like, that's been the coolest experience for sure. And it also makes me in the same headspace. I'm also like, I can't believe I did not know this author lived here. Like, shame on me, but also like, do you know how cool you are? Do you know how awesome you are?
Oh man, that actually reminds me of a question that I did want to ask, which was, Meadow Market specifically tries to attract in our local authors.
Yes.
And what is the plan, or what do you envision for Kinara interacting with local authors?
So one of the things I definitely want to be able to build up to is having like author events, being able to, whether it's before or after I get my own brick and mortar, I would love to just be able to provide a platform for them. So whether that's a book club meeting, or if they want to have Kinara Bookstore be one of the stops on their book tour, just to talk about their book, whether or not the people have read it yet or not. I definitely see that in Kinara's future, being a resource and a platform for them. So building my way up to be able to have some place to host them, because right now I don't think they'd want to, unless maybe I could turn it into some kind of cool YouTube page, but unless they want to get in the car with me in the inventory and we talk about their book, I want to have a proper setup for them, I can roll out the red carpet.
Yes. Have them sit in the trunk and sign books and line around a parking lot.
You know how they have the videos of what's the name of the late night?
It's like, is it Jimmy that does them in there?
In the car?
I think so.
Like the car karaoke?
Yeah.
Like that?
Yeah.
Something like that, but for authors? I might be able to think.
I don't hate that
idea.
I
might be able to think of that concept,
I would watch
actually. I can flesh that out.
It just takes like one wild hair idea, right? Like this podcast and having it in here came from, I had an author friend who was like, I want to market my book. And I was like, oh yeah, tell me about your book. And then I was like, actually come talk about it on a podcast. Because the way you described it, that it's sold.
Yeah. Yes. I was kind of getting excited as I was talking it just now too. I was like, actually, that doesn't sound bad at all.
I love it. Yeah. Yes. Well, if as soon as that launches, you've already got one guaranteed subscriber.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it. See? The Tulsa literary support.
It happens. You say, I want to do this, and the community says, great, how can we help? We're there. Wherever it is, we're going to follow.
Yes.
And it's so good.
Yep.
Kayla, it's been from day one an absolute joy working with you.
Yes, you too.
Such a fun experience. And
Thanks, Melodie.
I'm glad that we got to connect as people too.
For sure. So. Yeah. I'll never forget our first conversation. Like, we talked about business stuff for maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah, it was all just like getting to know each other.
Yeah, after the best getting to know you ever.
Yeah. I got home and Jared was like, how was it? You were gone a long time. And I was like, yeah, we only talked about business for like 10 minutes. I was like, I just really love her as a person.
Oh, yes, I love you too. You've been such a good support. And I I can't advocate for you enough. Like every time I see your post, I'm like immediate what's it called? Repost.
No, I feel that too. Like it feels like I mean, technically we're not business partners.
Right.
We're partnering on something,
Right.
but
Like
we're
we're
not.
collabing.
But I feel like you're a business partner. I don't feel like I'm doing this alone or that, and I'm doing this with Jared. Like,
Yeah.
I don't feel like we're doing this alone.
Right.
I feel like we've got each other.
Support.
And it's the coolest thing that I never would have expected.
Ditto.
And here we were, January 2025, neither of us saw ourselves doing any of this.
Sure didn't.
And then suddenly the wind shifted, the timing was right, the stars aligned.
Seriously, we're elbow deep now.
And here we are doing it.
Yes. Yep.
And
go us.
Go us.
Yes.
Oh man, I love it. Man, I think the real theme of all of this is like dreams come true, and when things are right and ready, they happen exactly as they're supposed to. So
yes, I accept that. I love it.
I just what a treat. I think I say that at the end of every episode. What a treat. But treat. Genuinely just a treat and a joy. And I can't thank the listeners enough for all of the support of the podcast and of the store. If you don't already, you need to follow Kinara Books, Instagram, Threads, Facebook. Where else are you?
We have TikTok, Threads, and Instagram right now. So I think any of those methods would be good to keep up, to see where we're going to be next. And then, hopefully you can come see us in person too.
Yeah. Follow the pop-up calendar. Yeah. And then as a member of the American Booksellers Association, Kinara Books is also available on Libro and bookshop.org.
Correct.
So if you can't make it to a pop-up, then you can at least support that way. And then if you are in Tulsa and it's not a pop-up day, you can come check out what Kayla has carefully curated to add to Meadow Market.
Yes.
And we've got a really
so exciting.
It's such a thrill, and it makes me think that I've got a couple of author friends that I think need to join your list.
Really?
And then also
good.
I need to put on here.
Awesome.
Specifically thinking, I sat next to a dark fantasy author. Ooh. Her name is K.L. Jones. I don't know if you're familiar.
How do you spell the first name?
It's just K.L.
Oh, K.L. Jones.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's her pen name.
Got it.
And she's an absolute sweetheart.
Oh, cool.
Just because, like, her watching my table while I went to the restroom or, like, spent too much money at the author fair. But she's a sweetheart.
Okay, I'm going to have to add her to my list of authors I need to meet in person.
Yes. And, I need to get her on the pod too.
Yeah.
And then the next recordings are going to be with Siam Press. They're a micro press here in Tulsa.
That's awesome.
I've got another author who just joined the Meadow Market shelf, Erin Herring, who is an actress who has written some fiction that's got some nice, like, mirrors of herself in it.
I love that.
So I'm excited to read all of that. But you can find the podcast at meadowmarketbooks.com and anywhere you get your podcasts. Thank you for listening.